Assalamu alaikum, viewers. Welcome to our seminar today, jointly organized by KSIMC of London and Hydari Islamic Center. The topic for today's seminar is Azadari at home during COVID-19. I would like to start by introducing the speakers. First of all, we have Zakira Merali. Ummi is an internationally renowned scholar and teacher who has extensive background in Islamic education. She is one of the 4 founding members of Hujjat Saturday Workshop, of which I'm proud to say that I was also part of during at least the early years. And she is also the CEO and founder of Q Fatima. Ummi has worked tirelessly to produce excellent Islamic resources which are simple, relevant, and easy to understand. The most recent strategies are Quran City and Q Bytes. Quran City is an innovative way to teach the structure of the Holy Quran through building a city, whilst Q Bytes are daily podcasts, all managed in an easy-to-use mobile app. Ummi coordinates various interfaith activities as part of the executive committee of Haro Interfaith. We also have Sheikh Vinay Khetia. Sheikh Vinay is a native of Toronto who embraced Islam in 2002. Inshallah, you might have had a chance to listen to his seminar earlier in the week regarding that. He has studied at various traditional Islamic seminaries in London, Iraq, and Syria. He has an undergraduate degree in religious and Near Eastern studies from the University of Toronto and an MA in history and philosophy of religion from Concordia University. He is a PhD candidate in the Department of Religious Studies at McMaster University with a focus on the intellectual history of Islam and specifically Shiism. We welcome you both to the seminar. We are waiting for Syed Ammar. Syed Ammar is at the moment doing another majlis. As soon as he finishes that, inshallah, he will join us, at which point I will introduce him. For the viewers, you can ask questions through the Facebook or the YouTube channel. Feel free to post the questions in the comment section, and I will present the questions to the panel. So firstly, I would like to start with Ummi if she would like to, introduce and tell us a bit about how we do Azadari at home, or how should we do our Azadari at home, or indeed if it can replace the collective Azadari that we do, we are used to in our centers. Asad, Ummi, please.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الصلاة والسلام على محمد وعلى الطيبين الطاهرين السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. I'm going to divide this into 2 bits. One's talking to children or talking to moms at home, giving a bit of positivity, but I need to look at the other side, which is talking to community leaders as well. I'm going to start off with something that I remember from my childhood. My first memories of my childhood are my father's preparations for the 10 days of Muharram. My father died when I was 10. I remember the business, he was a very successful businessman. Businesses were closed pre-10 days of Muharram and for the whole 12 days as such. We used to go to the mosque, scrubbing the center, putting up the black banners, although we had servants, but we did that ourselves. That was just bringing us more closer to what we did. We never bought new black clothes. Our old clothes were dyed black. My father would not allow us to go to mosque at night. As children, he used to come back in the morning and tell us about it, because he said one of the things Hussein stood for was Salah. So we had to wake up on time for Salah, which we could not do if we slept at 11 or 12 o'clock. I'm not talking about today, but it's way past my bedtime. So how do I bring it at home? Well, when I talk to children, which I do at 6 o'clock, I say the first thing you got to do is build a Muharram corner. So at home, you've got to have a corner where you will make an alarm, where you put a black banner up. You will listen to one majlis a day at least, and you recite marthiyas and nohas, and you will sit in that corner respectfully as you would do on the farsh in the mosque, and you will make sure that you wear black, you will sit there properly, all phones off, everything just as we do at the center. You will have simple food like we did. You will not go shopping, no purchases. These are things we do. Now, for today, for example, in our household, we didn't listen to Sheikh Vinay, for example, or Syed Ammar, or Sheikh Arif, or whoever the speakers were. We actually saw a documentary on Syria and Lebanon, and there was a child a 5-year-old was so traumatized, like Sayyidah Sakina, who couldn't talk. Or we watched a man saying how 25 people of his household were killed in Syria. Those for us was how we would connect those to Karbala. But that's now the positive side, is how we do it at home. On the flip side, COVID-19 is not only fighting a biological virus, but we're fighting fear, we're fighting isolation, we're fighting loneliness and uncertainty. A Wi-Fi router and YouTube, to be very honest, does not equate to a connection. As a community, because we look to our community leaders for some sort of a solution, I find we need to find something to maintain community cohesion, whether it is Microsoft Teams or Zoom or whatever platform there is, where groups of people can get together and talk, maybe even do a majlis like that. I don't think these, my 2 pennies worth, these online majlises, maybe, just maybe, they're desensitizing us. Because if I'm sitting with my pajamas comfortably with my cup of tea and listening to somebody, I can switch off anytime. The concentration is less. The community cohesion is less. And maybe, just maybe, I fear bunker mentality. So that's my introduction, basically.
Hassan, thank you, Ummi Bhai, for your thoughts. We'll go to Sheikh Vinay for his intro and his thoughts on the subject.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. This reminds me, our practices at the moment during COVID reminds me of a admonition and guidance given by the great scholar Sheikh Abdullah al-Mamaqani, Sahib Tanqid al-Maqad, one of the great scholars of Hadith. And he wrote in a wasiyah to his son, to his children rather, not only to his son, to all his children, in a wasiyah, he wrote that alayka, that upon you is iqamatul a'za, is establishing the a'za of Sayyid al-Shuhada every day, fi kulli yawmin. And he says there that even if no one has prepared a majlis for you, or there isn't a Husainiyah for you, or there isn't something for you, read the tragedy of Sayyid al-Shuhada every day to your children. Even if nothing is prepared for you, that it is already a sunnah in this sense to remember Sayyid al-Shuhada every day. And now with COVID, and with this isolation, or being, isolated within our particular social bubbles, we are compelled to take a little bit more, perhaps more ownership of some of our Azadari rituals, or our own a'za of Sayyid al-Shuhada. Like, it was just mentioned, setting up a Muharram corner and things like that. I don't think many people would ever dream of that, or think of that really, because the mosque kind of replaces that in that sense, right? And I think, from what I'm seeing, is a lot of parents are coming up with creative ways to keep their children interested, dressing the children up at home in black, and and trying to their best to create that environment at home within their particular social bubble. So those efforts, I think, even after COVID, will not go in vain, because we'll come up with new ways to reinforce the remembrance of Imam Hussein and Ahlul Bayt at home for those that are putting those extra efforts in. And like, Ummi's just said, they're not just simply, sitting in the pajamas, having a cup of chai and watching a majlis and kind of shutting off, and half the time on the phone, half the time with this. but those who really, are trying their best to establish the remembrance of the musibah of Sayyid al-Shuhada in their homes. Thus, their homes, become a Husseiniya. Their homes become a place of the remembrance of the dhikr of Sayyid al-Shuhada, and the angels descend upon their home in this sense, right? So their homes become a mehfil in this sense. So that's, from that perspective, of course, it's an indescribable blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if we look at it from that perspective, right? The angle by which we look at it. From the other perspective, of course, mu'mineen are down, not being able to go to the mosque, at least most of the masajid, and then the fear of going to it altogether. I see the sadness in the eyes of mu'mineen, I really do. I see the sadness, I can hear the intonation in their voice. I can sense the sadness in the intonation of their voice. This loneliness away from the masajid, away from the Husseyniyat, that social atmosphere, the power of doing Azadari as a community together, Matam as a community together, is something that some of the brothers in this, from most of the brothers and the sisters, it's like having a part of their soul torn out, So yes, of course, we try our best to do what we can at home, but it can't replace that sense of community. This online, video cam and all that, delivery of majalis in this way cannot replace that physical presence. And that physical presence also has an effect on the heart and the soul that I don't think cameras and computer screens do. There's something about seeing a human being live in front of you, hearing his or her voice live in front of you, having other people around you, that the collective emotion has an effect on the soul. It has an effect on the heart, on softening the heart. And perhaps being at home, our hearts may not be as softened, unless obviously, we are doing other things to instill that.
Ahsant, Sheikh Vinay. We have Syed Ammar who has joined us. So before he says anything, allow me to introduce Syed Dr. Ammar Nakshwani, Syed Ammar, or San, as we lovingly like to call him. Syed Ammar was listed as one of the 500 most influential Muslims in 2014. He was a visiting scholar at Columbia University's Middle East Institute and University of Cambridge Center of Islamic Studies. He previously held the Imam Ali Chair for Shi'i Studies and Dialogue among Islamic Legal Schools at Hartford Seminary. Syed Ammar attended University College London, obtained his BSc in Psychology and Law in 2003, while also studying a one-year diploma course at the LSE. He thereafter obtained his MA from Shahid Behishti University in Tehran and his doctorate from University of Exeter. He has taught courses on Islam and human rights, Islam and pluralism, general and gender studies through a Quranic perspective. Syed Ammar serves as the special representative to the United Nations for the Universal Muslim Association of America, UMAA. In this role, he promotes women's rights initiatives, social development, and religious tolerance. He uses his position to speak out for the preservation of cultural heritage, historical art and architecture, and ancient literature. Prior to joining UMAA, Syed Ammar served as the visiting scholar of Islamic Studies at the University of Cambridge in England, and in this position he performed extensive research and academic analysis of ancient Islamic texts, which he has discussed at a number of academic forums. Syed Ammar, welcome, and alhamdulillah, you came at the right time because Sister Ummi and Sheikh Vinay have given their introduction on the topic of Azadari at home during COVID-19. So if you'd like to start by saying what your thoughts are on that.
First and foremost, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. I sincerely apologize that I've entered this late because I finished my majlis and then I had a majlis in the middle that just overplayed a bit. So please forgive me. I really would have loved to have listened to what was said before me, just to make sure that not only I benefit, but I don't regurgitate or say anything else that probably both the respected speakers have said. I was actually thinking about this, and I was thinking that after Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam passed away, ziyarah of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam was even difficult for the Imams of Ahl al-Bayt to reach. Being confined in one's house became part and parcel of the Imams after Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam in different ways. One may argue literally in the context of Imam al-Hadi and Imam al-Askari alayhi salam. And one might talk metaphorically in the case of Imam al-Rada and Imam al-Jawad alayhim as-salam. You don't necessarily see that freedom in their lives. We always assume that all the Imams would go on ziyarah regularly and have that freedom. So our lack of freedom at the moment, in a way, one may look back at the lives of the Imams and see that although it wasn't because of a virus, it certainly was because of a metaphorical virus of certain caliphs in their times who did not necessarily allow for them to observe the aza associated with Imam al-Hussein in the many different forms that we of course see. Aza, aza is not just majalis, it could be ziyarat al-Hussein. There are other forms of aza as well. So, I was thinking about this, that there's this period where they are also confined. Them being confined, we should be grateful, is different to our being confined. I don't have Harun al-Rashid's foot soldiers surrounding my house when I'm confined in London or in Toronto. Muhammad bin Abi Umar, amongst others, lose their lives because of them trying to maintain their tashayyu'. We're not going to lose our lives and stand more hajjand. You know what I mean? Well, I don't think it's got that dangerous at the moment. So I think that many of us, if we begin to reflect about this situation, I don't think it's the worst that Shia have been through in their 1400-year history. There's been other times where us having to observe a Muharram at home could possibly be similar to what you might imagine Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam and Imam al-Baqir and others talking to some of the poets that surrounded them who were just sitting at home with them. You don't really hear that Imam al-Sadiq has this Ihsaniyat al-Baqir alayhi salam in Medina. It really sounds like in their time they're having house majalis. Possibly one may argue that the development to Ihsaniyat, Imam Bargas, possibly Qum could be seen as a central place for that type of development. But if I'm looking at Medina during the Abbasid period, I can't really imagine that there is too much freedom to have an Imam Barga called, I don't know, Astana Zahra necessarily, or something like Idara al-Ja'fariya in the time of Imam al-Kadhim with Mansour al-Dawaniqi keeping his eyes out on everything. So it's not the first time in our history that we have been confined to observing Muharram, Aza, and if it means that somehow we get closer to the Imams by feeling a bit of what they felt at a time where they wish all of their Shia were around them, but some were in Kufa. Da'bal bin Ali al-Khuza'i talks of different bodies and different graves everywhere, and how they wish that they were all gathered in one place. So possibly this could be something where we can look at the Imams one day, inshallah, and say, we also felt a little bit of how it feels not to have all the Shia gather.
Ahsant, Sayyid Ammar. We have not a question, but it's a comment. And this comment says, Azadari at home is helping us reach our souls in solitude. It is helping us reflect and strengthen our belief for which Imam Hussein sacrificed his life. Sheikh Vinay, any comment or views on this?
Khalwa and solitude or retreat is very good. It's highly mustahab, you know, to take time in solitude, to reflect, to strengthen one's relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Imam of the time. In fact, you know, we read traditions to such an extent that Man arrafahu Allah hadha al-amr, that the one that Imam Sadiq said, the one whom Allah gives knowledge of this amr. This amr, of course, is the wilayah of Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad. You know, that even if he or she was to die, yani ala ra'si jabalin, you know, on the top of a mountain, you know, it would make no difference to that person, because they have this cognizance that is endowed upon them from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala of the Ammar, right? Whatever this can apply to the deen, the wilayah, things like this. Of course, this is a very maqam azim. It's a very great maqam. But khalwa and solitude has a benefit. If it strengthens, you know, it ideally should strengthen the heart and bring it closer to, you know, to the feeling of closeness, shall we say, to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in a spiritual sense. Maybe even have a feeling of the ghurba or the estrangement of the Imam of the time as well, you know. Yeah, I think that's pretty much what I have to say about that.
Ahsant. Said Ammar, would you like to add anything to that? Solitude helping us reach our souls?
I really admire volunteers in Muharram, and I think they needed a year to maybe see how it feels to sit down and be patient and listening to a majlis. I believe that, you know, volunteering can also become an excuse to have a smoke for an hour. I also believe that, you know, you could easily build a fiefdom where you're in the kitchen cooking. That really means that I don't sit in majalis much, but I am serving Imam Hussein. I'm serving Imam Hussein. Shaitan can easily play with us, because Shaitan doesn't want the human being to reach the highest levels of ilm. His main enemy at the, you know, the beginning of the epoch of the whole development of our understanding of life is this representative of God on earth whose ilm is higher than the ilm of others. So Shaitan wants to block the search of ilm. Volunteers are amazing. I think it's good 10 nights for them to actually sit, listen to majalis, you know. I think there's a wonderful blessing there. I was watching a documentary about volunteers in Iraqi majalis in London, and I was actually amazed. It was such a brilliant documentary, but I by the end realized that none of the youth in that documentary sit in majalis. Now, someone might argue that they listen to the majlis after, but there's nothing like the barakah of sitting in majalis al-Hussein alayhi salam. But for those who don't get the chance to sit in majalis al-Hussein alayhi salam, who are always in the car park or in the kitchen or running around and so on, this must be a wonderful moment for them just to sit back, relax, and take in majalis. And I think it's great now. You can hear majalis of so many people at the same time, which you know really don't get that opportunity as well. The media platforms are doing great for us as well. So it has some great benefits, but nothing can replace, you know, the camaraderie of the walaya. Walaya, not wilaya. Walaya. You know, there's that social camaraderie of looking at someone's eyes. And I think, you know, Ummi and Sheikh Vinay, they're going to agree with me that you give a majlis to see someone in front of you, that tear suddenly breaks you down as well. And so you miss that rapport with that fellow Shi'i who has malaika around them. But khair, it is what it is, and God's the best of planners.
Ahsant. I saw Ummi nodding there. I think she was agreeing with that comment. Any comments from you, Ummi regarding this?
I think this solitude business is done at night, early in the morning before Fajr. To me, I mean, Azadari is all about, as Ammar said, togetherness. It's community cohesion. You got to be there. It's all too well. I mentioned this before. A Wi-Fi router, webcam does not replace connectivity. And that's something we need to look at. I don't know, like I said before, maybe something like, I don't know, Zoom, Microsoft Teams, whatever, where people can actually engage with each other. I mean, with all due respect to Ammar and Sheikh Vinay, you know, I can watch them on YouTube, but it's not the same. It really is not the same. I need to engage with him. I need to be able to see him. Even in the mosque as women, we're deprived of it. We sort of look up at a screen up there, but it's with people. And that's the most awful thing you can do. But we do that. And Azadari is all about being with people. It really is. I said all the bits we've said about home, create your corner, all the rest of it. But it doesn't replace community.
Awesome. There's an interesting question which I've just put on the screen. How do we engage our teenagers at home in Azadari? I think you work a lot with teen or pre-teens, Ummi Bhai. So I'd like you to take the lead on this question, please.
Sheer bribery. Literally. If you do not sit with me, then these will be the consequences. But Mom, you have to sit them down. This is where the family will sit, watch a majlis, do, have matam, have marthiyas, and then you will have your dinner. I'm sorry, it's as simple as that. Some of them are, okay, they will come and sit out of all that. But you need to be able to use any method possible, except those that are not allowed, to get them to sit down, to switch off their phones, to sit down in that corner and participate. I grew up with my grandmother, who made sure that after every dinner there was a marthia, except on wiladats and on Eids. But otherwise we went up, and the only reason we went up was because the tabarruk was beautiful. It was chocolates from England. But she made sure we did that, and that put the love of Hussein in us. So you know what? Use any method possible, absolutely anything, but get them to sit down. No niceties.
Asant, thank you. That was very, very, I think, well answered and all that. Let's see. The online format of commemoration is eliminating many cultural practices of Azadari. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Sheikh Vinay, please.
Well, it's creating a new culture of Azadari. So I think so it's good in the sense that, not that in eliminating, but it's adding to the repertoire of the culture of Azadari. So if you want to see it, the glass half full, you can see it that way. Eliminating, I don't see it as eliminating. I just see it as a temporary stopgap measure, so to speak, to continue the remembrance of Imam Hussein, of course, albeit in a digital online format, because we have no other choice. And after all, they've always been the brothers and sisters that prefer to log on online anyhow. And not to partake in these things, or are either busy or for whatever reason just come maybe on the 9th and the 10th night, and the other nights just log on online. And we pray that everyone gets their reward from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and without striking, but we don't want to eliminate anything. I would say a temporary stopgap or a temporary pause on some of the more traditional methods of commemorating the Shahadat of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. And yeah, we don't want to eliminate anything, and to eliminate is not good. We want to cherish the culture of Azadari in all its beauty and its varieties.
Asant. Said Ammar, one for you. We also miss touching and kissing Alam and Tabut. Any comments on this, please? I think it's following on the same vein about traditional forms of Azadari.
Well, it's good that that reverence and that yearning is there. I think that's a great thing. you know, that you're looking at yourself in the mirror and you're realizing just how gifted you were with Majalis al-Hussein. I think a lot took it for granted. A lot even took the Shabih and the Alam and all these things for granted. And now they look at it and they're like, oh God, all of those opportunities I had throughout the year, and I divided Kushalis into big and small, and now, you know, I could have made use of it. But I still think that shows that your nafs al-lawama level is good. You know, I think that's something positive, you know, that you've reflected on it and so on, and that yearning's there. Absence makes the heart grow fonder, and that heart with the heat of love of Hussein alayhi salam never subsides. So, you know, I think it's a positive. And, you know, Sheikh Vinay said it perfectly, that, you know, it's not going to be eliminated. One lady in front of Yazid said, however hard you try, you'll never obliterate our memory. So that's not going to be obliterated. So, you know, you just got a bit of sabr. No one's asking you to have the sabr of Ayyub, but, you know, just a bit of sabr.
Asant. Ummi, any comments on that? Traditional forms of Azadari missing, you know, the tabut and shabi and all that. Your thoughts on that?
In these times, there's nothing stopping you from making one at home. Make an alam. If not your kids, get your grandkids to make one. Nothing's stopping you from doing that. You've got to make sure you create a Husseiniya at home in these times and make it an example for others.
Ahsant. There is more of a comment than a question from Tom Spires, which says the spirit of Imam Hussein alayhi salam and his message will carry on regardless of the current pandemic, and that is a miracle in itself. I think we'll all be in agreement of that. But do we have any comments on that?
I don't know. I'll start off. I'll just say, you know, the human dimension, the fitri dimension to Karbala, you know, any human being can relate to it. It's amazing. There's so many different aspects of Karbala, which will mean that anything that's going to come in your way is really not going to stop it from benefiting you. What I found a miracle, I'm sure the others will agree, is that every single year, the same story, which talks about, for example, let's say, I don't know, 9.5 or 10 hours, one day, 1,400 years ago, just keeps on popping up with new messages, with new lessons. It's the same story. It's the same 10th of Muharram. It's the same Fajr until an hour before Maghrib. And yet every single year there are new lessons. A story like that, nothing can get in the way of your attachment to it. There are still stories of fallible romantic figures that affect human beings until today. How about, you know, these divine figures? So yeah, you know, it's a miracle. The 10th of Muharram is a miracle, and it really relates to the primordial nature. While it relates to the primordial nature, it's always going to be part of our lives.
Hasan, any other comments on that from Sheikh Vinay or Ummi Bhai?
No, I think it was
the miracle.
answer was suffice.
The miracle. I don't know. I personally feel that the holy month of Ramadan, when we were all at home and listened to the lectures online, and we had iftar at home, and we didn't go to the mosque, that kind of trained us in a way, because that was the early days of COVID and no one was allowed to come out, and it was one thing to be able to do, you know, to listen to the lectures online and all that. I personally, I miss the collective matam stuff, doing matam together and all that. I find that difficult doing it at home with my family. Your thoughts, Ummi Bhai?
I think as parents, what we did was we gave the responsibility away to the centers. We took our children to the centers and ourselves as well, and everything was done for us. This is hard work. This is now creating a center within a home, making a home a Husseiniya. And I think that's probably what you miss more, because suddenly you've got a responsibility. This was easy. Put them all in the car, get in the car and go to the mosque. They will sort it out for you. This is now a completely different thing. It's just like madrasa and workshop, for example. I think we just abdicated as parents. We abdicated our responsibility, we gave it away, and they will sort it all out for us. The responsibility is ours to create it at home. There are so many negatives, definitely, like I said, community cohesion, but the positive was that we took on a responsibility from Ramadan to create something in the home which we've never created before. We've had to do it ourselves, and it's really hard work.
Don't forget that, look, the most oppressed people in relation to Azadari was the Iraqis from 77 till 03. And I'm willing to discuss with anyone that I don't think the Saudi Shia and the Bahraini Shia were as oppressed as the Iraqi Shia in that period. 26 years, Haji Ali. You know, you've had a couple of nights without matam. 26 years where majalis were completely banned. Many people don't know this, by the way. You know, even when people talk to me today about the oppression that some of the Saudi Shia face or some of the Bahraini Shia face, whenever I sit, for example, with Mullah Abadar Halwaji, for example, and I ask him, you know, you guys face oppression, so on. How many mambarkas do you have? It's like, yeah, only 500. And when I talk to some of my friends from Dammam and Qatif and so on, who've been through difficult times, how many mambarkas do you have? Yeah, we're close to 1,000. That is a place where they may have difficulties, but when you've still got 500 you could build, it's not too bad. You, all of you from the, let's say, from the Khawaja community, from the Indo-Pak background, you could go ziyarah to Iraq in the 80s. You might have one chaperone, Ba'thi guy, big moustache walking around with you, but majority of the other time, nobody else from the Iraqis was really allowed to eat. You know, I'm sure you remember, some of you would have gone to Karbala or Najaf in the 80s, or, you know, you would remember that, listen, you're not seeing many Iraqis doing matam, are you? You're not seeing anything. So the Iraqis who went through 77 till 03, you want to talk to them about, about just how hard it is, they can really tell you about that. What we're going through now maybe is going to strengthen our resolve, build our characters. And that's only a few nights. You know, I know the love of Imam Hussein is infectious, there's no doubt. But believe you me, as I mentioned right at the beginning, that what we're going through at the moment, alhamdulillah, it's opened us up, we're reflecting, but you know what, there's been some who have gone through much harsher times. Some who went through years of taqiyya in India just to hide their Shia identity, because they would have been killed had they been found out to be Shia, and who done taqiyya for years. So if you are walking on their footsteps, then I think, you know, this is good for our souls. We need a bit of that.
Asad, Sheikh Vinay?
Yes, I think so. You know, we truly value things when we don't have them within our grasp. And certainly we have to reflect over the brothers and sisters that were denied and deprived these blessings, or deprived the opportunities, rather, I shouldn't say blessings, deprived the opportunities to establish the remembrance of Imam Hussein, at least publicly, right? And you know, this is, you know, as Syed said, went on for so long. And but you know, the way I see it, it's like an explosion. It's like, you know, the bottle has exploded, and now to put it back in again, you know, is quite difficult, you know. And but it also shows the miracle of Imam Hussein that even after the 26 years of Saddam's oppression and Saddam's tyranny, that the Mu'mineen just kind of picked up right where they left off, in a sense. That's the miracle of Imam Hussein. Right? No one can erase it, you know. They try to put the light of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala out, but they cannot. It's not possible. And so for us, one Muharram without having the physical majalis, inshallah, our sabr and our connection with Imam al-Hussein is stronger than that.
Ahsant. Ahsant. There's a question, and it's specifically to Ummi Bhai from Dr. Liaquat Devji. He says, would you say COVID-19 was a wake-up call from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for parents regarding taking their responsibility for secular and spiritual development for their children? So, Ummi Bhai, please.
First of all, I think COVID-19 is a multi-faith, multicultural challenge. And all of us in Interfaith have been talking about faith in transition. Because of COVID, it's highlighted the fact that will my grandchildren still believe the way I do? Will they respect the tradition same way as I do? Is it a wake-up call? Definitely, because we're thinking more about it. We're talking more about it. We took so much for granted. I'm not sure if all the conspiracy theories tells me it's from Allah or not, but whatever it is something there. And wherever it came from, it came from. But as far as we're concerned, yes, it does wake you up because you start rethinking, how am I going to ensure faith in transition? To me, that is the major question. As a mom and as a grandmother, that's what I look at. We're okay. Well, when I say okay, we've got these traditions and these, it's entrenched in us. The love of Hussein, you just cannot tear it away from us. But I know it will come, but am I able to nurture it in my grandchildren? Maybe I've done it in my children, maybe, but grandchildren. So yes, it's a wake-up call. Got to start thinking really hard. I cannot give this up now to the mosque to do because they're not there at the moment.
Asad, comments on that, Said Ammar? Wake-up call for us and our children?
Well, I think it's definitely a wake-up call for those who are planning to do their usual 10 nights of religious actions every year. That, you know what? Oh, God, those 10 nights aren't here. Normally it was like, that is when you would pay off all your sins with nice donations. And it's not there anymore for this year. So I think that's a great wake-up call, because I think there's a lot of people who tell you, listen, bro, you know what, this Muharram does it for me. I got to be there 10 nights. And now they realize, oh, God, Muharram's not here. What am I doing? And I think it's a wake-up call for sure. I think it's a great wake-up call. I think many of us, in some cases, have got closer to each other. We got closer to our families, spending more time at home. I haven't traveled now for close to, I think, oh God, maybe 6 months. I haven't said that for about 20 years. So I think it's been a blessing for me, So it's a blessing for me on a spiritual level, that I'm able to bond with, with the family and so on, and spend more time with the family. And so I think it's a positive wake-up call.
Ahsan. Sheikh Vinay, any comments on being a wake-up call, COVID-19?
Oh, absolutely. As an educator, you see that parents have been thrown into, both as a parent myself and as an educator, we see that parents have been really thrown into the front line here now and said, hey, what are you doing with your kids at home? You're just going to have 6 months of them, no madrasa, no education, nothing. So parents now are like, whoa, I got to do something. I got to come up with something for kids to do at home. How am I going to face my imam? My kids just like playing video games on the night of Abu Fadl Abbas. No, there's no way. Someone has even a little bit of ghira for Imam Hussein alayhi salam. They're going to look at their kids and they're going to be like, okay, you got to do something. Even if I'm not that religious, I got to do something at home. So even the people who perhaps don't identify that much, with the regular mosque going, kind of habits, during Muharram, they even feel this sense of ownership. A lot of people feel this, and it's a positive thing in that sense. I mean, we try to, like I said, Allah doesn't do anything except that it's khair for the mu'min, right? And in this sense, there is khair in it, and parents are being forced to like myself, really think, what am I doing? I don't have a school. I don't have a madrasa. Our Islamic school is closed. I'm putting her on online education now. And it's like, that's obviously not enough. So what am I doing at home, to help, expose my child to the sha'ir of Allah and His Rasul and the Ahlul Bayt, right? So we all have to come up with creative solutions for that.
Awesome. There's a very interesting question from Salim Bimji. Online Azadari also impacts the scholars who are addressing the audience, as the lecturers feed off the energy and aura of the participants of the Majlis of Imam Hussein. Now, you're all seasoned reciters, scholars, giving lectures from the mimbar and all that. So I'm really, really interested in how, giving broadcasts online has affected you personally. We'll start with Ummi Bhai.
It's the most difficult thing in the universe. I lock myself up in here in this thing from 7 o'clock in the morning till about 7 o'clock at night. I look at my own face, and that's 4 a day, and it's awful. It's awful. I just have to look at myself. I feel people, but I can't see anyone. Oh, wait a minute. I'm 61. My IT is crap. So I have to adjust the camera. I have to adjust the lighting. I get told your face is not up, it's not down. Your lighting is bad. Oh, really? Yeah, it does impact us. Yes, this is the truth as it is, okay? And I pretend that it's all hunky-dory. But, truth be told, it is so difficult. I rest my case.
Sheikh Vinay, please.
It's just, I don't have too much to add, except it's just really awkward. It's just extremely awkward talking to yourself into a webcam or a camera. It's just really, really hard. I had to do it for Shahr Ramadan. Alhamdulillah, for Muharram, I had a few people come to listen. At someone's house, we did it. So I was at least, alhamdulillah, lucky that way, at least, because I couldn't do the Masahib of Imam Hussein. Well, no, I could probably, but I don't know how it would feel to just, if that's all I was doing, just reciting in front of a camera, it would be very difficult. Even though 1-2 people were behind the camera, it was still, you couldn't really feed off them, but you still have some assurance that there's someone else sitting in the room, standing in the room listening.
You're not talking to a blank wall, yeah.
Yeah, no, but I've done those too. I've done my fair share of the blank wall lectures as well, and they're just so strange. It's like, and then you have to think: are you putting on an act? Am I acting this out? Is this sincere? Am I forcing this out? Because and then the audience has to accept and realize what is going on here. They can't expect what they would normally get in a live majlis. So I implore mu'mineen who are sitting at home, please do not expect what you would normally expect from a speaker, because the speakers are also under tremendous pressure. The speakers are also under this tremendous, pressure to perform and give all the emotions and let it all out, but they have to also feed off the audience, right? So that becomes very hard. So we implore the audience and the mu'mineen to
Asad, Said Ammar.
Well, I think I'm a bit more fortunate than the other two, because I've got television studios and as my backup for the majalis that I'm giving. So not only was I in a studio in Shahr Ramadan, which was converted virtually into an Imam Barga, then my Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam lectures were in Dar al-Islam, in the Iraqi community in London. Here I'm in this wonderful Imam Barga as well. If I was in their rooms, there's no chance. It would be a major test of my nafs to be able to give lectures in those rooms. With all due respect to the rooms that you're in, I'm sure the backdrop is nice, but I this blessing over here, this is my best friend, and I need the mambar, otherwise I cannot do it. Mind you, I'll give you two angles to look at this. One angle, I think actually no crowd is actually beneficial for people like me. So it means we don't go off on one crazy rant all of a sudden. So I think a lot of people have been telling me there's a real maturity and a wisdom that's not maturity and wisdom, that's no crowd. If there was a few people in front of me, we're all fired up, there's gonna be absolute fireworks going on. But what's helped me in one way is that I haven't had the crowd in front of me that will look at me and I look at them and we both know where this is heading, and this phone is slipping. Now I have to figure this out 1 second. So yeah, so that's one angle. Let me just pick it up for a second. And so on the other angle, I remember our beloved Babu Laylo in Dar es Salaam. He has like a mahfal, you know, Hajj Ali, you know him. Yeah, and he one day after my majlis in Dar, going back maybe, I don't know, 10 years or something, he said to me, I want to recite mosque at home, majlis at home. And I remember everyone in Dar used to say to me, when they were younger, they would get like a small coin from him for attending his mahfal. Okay? So now I'm going to his house. He said to me, going to a private majlis. I'm normally used to, if it's a private majlis at someone's home, I probably turn up just before I'm going up. There's already people there. I've got there's no one there, just me and him. So I'm thinking, oh, I'm a bit early here, but when's everyone turning up? And no one's turning up. Why? Well, we've gone into the mahfal, and he said, okay, you can recite your majlis now. And I was like, I think what's going on here? And he said, well, you know, everyone's here. And I said to him, okay, so me and you. He goes, yeah, me, you, Bibi, Bibi Fatima, and the 12th Imam. I said, would you need a bigger crowd than that? And I'll never forget that. I'll never forget that. Why? It's because I would always remember it in these few months that just imagine the Imam is there. It's never exactly the same as when you're having that crowd, but you got to think of things. And I really believe that I met him for a reason, because here's a man who's never going to get the limelight, but taught me in my 20s that did you really need a crowd to recite Masa'ib al-Hussein? And that really affected me that year. It taught me a big lesson. So, you know, I try and hold on to stories like that in these difficult moments. But I can really appreciate what, you know, they're going through, because if those are the rooms you're reciting from, then it must be, that is true sincerity over there.
I think Ummi wants to come in. Bismillah, Ummi.
You know what? You have an advantage. If you wear clothes that are the same every day, nobody says anything. Let me tell you the comments. Your scarf was the same as it was yesterday. What's that behind you? Whose picture have you got? What books do you have on your shelf? Are you serious? So I'm just telling you, you don't have that problem. You could wear your white thing, Sheikh Vinay, and they're okay with you. You're going to wear your whole black and you're fine. No, your scarf wasn't ironed. And I say, I'm really sorry. I don't have a wife. I really don't. So it happens. But this is these are the, you know, this is the other side, the flip side. I mean, the good side is beautiful. You know, you're connecting to hearts. So, you know, this is a side that happens that, well, bound to happen.
Asad, I think in the interest of time, I will take just one last question. We have about 7 minutes left, and I think, Ummi bhai, this might be for you. Many of us might struggle to implement correct etiquette of majalis at home. Any tips, e.g., multitasking, what we wear, how we behave? I think you touched on that slightly. So if you can just give the viewers a bit of.
I think what we do is you must set out a time. This time to this time will be your majlis time. So that's one thing. The second thing is phones will be left on one side. You will come and sit down on the floor here, unless your knees are hurting, which they shouldn't. And you will sit down here and we will listen. We will recite together and we will listen. If you've got children or grandchildren in the background and you're at home, you will connect with me on Zoom or Microsoft Teams or whatever, and you will put your phone on silent, but you will listen through the whole thing. And I think that needs to be done. No multitasking, just as though you're in the mosque. Because I truly believe, just as Ammar said, that Sayyidah Fatima is there. And that respect to show to her must be there. So that little corner in your house or that little room in your house now becomes a Husseiniya. And the etiquettes of majalis apply there, or the etiquettes of the community or whatever Husseiniya apply there. And it doesn't matter who's rung the doorbell or who's around, you are out. And I know I said bribery and somebody commented on there's bribery. I meant positive bribery. You know, you can do whatever. I'll cook your favorite food, or we're going to sit here. That sort of stuff. Okay.
Ahsan. Closing comments, Sheikh Vinay?
Yes, in general, I would just say that, you know, these are trying times, they're testing times, but I always try to see the glass half full. I always try to see the positive in such things. Otherwise, we tend to become, you know, hopeless or go down the road of hopelessness. I always try to see the light at the end of the tunnel. You know, at least we are able to remember Imam al-Hussein in our homes. We have the ni'mah to at least remember him. That, you know, that Allah may, you know, test us in other ways, but we say, Allahumma la taj'al musibatana fi dinina. Oh Allah, don't put our musibah in our deen, at least. You know, if we lose that, we may not be able to get that back. So at least we're here and we're talking about the importance of remembering the rights of Allah and the rights of Ahlul Bayt, albeit in our homes. That in itself is a blessing. And that we have a community that can connect us, albeit online, all those IT people and all the people doing all the background work to make these things happen. May Allah bless all of them and their parents and their families. You know, like just like the brothers for me who recorded my majalis for Muharram. They didn't get any reward for it. It wasn't even for their community, but they showed up for 12 nights to record and put the videos on the hard drives and transfer this and do all of that stuff. And they were working, they had other things to do, but they did that so that we could record these majalis, right? So a lot of people are getting a lot of thawab and reward for their efforts in serving the cause of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, albeit in an unconventional manner.
Ahsant. Final comments, Syed Ammar? I can hear you.
I think he's
I can't
muted?
hear.
We can hear you, Syed.
No, I can't hear. For some reason, I can't hear.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
No?
I can't hear.
Final comments.
Hello? Hello? Hello?
I think we're having...
I can't see. Final comments. Okay, final comments. Final comments is that I miss you all sincerely. And I do remember a tradition about a person who wished that he was alongside Amir al-Mu'minin alayhi salam at the Battle of Jamal, and he couldn't make it. And I think the Imam says Allah knew what your niyyah was, that your niyyah was to be alongside me. And by the end of the day, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the Imams, they know our intentions. We all wish that we could have honored them in the best way possible. And that's it. Have that pure niyyah, and inshallah we start again.
Ahsant. Thank you very much to all the panelists, Ummi, Sheikh Vinay, and Ammar, to all the viewers and all the people who I couldn't put your questions on there. One was interest of time. The second was that I was trying to keep it relevant to the topic. So the questions that were outside the topic, I tried to avoid so that we could get as many questions relevant to the topic answered as possible. As always, Ahsant, may Allah bless you all and give us the tawfiq to do Azadari in the best way we can. Ahsant, thank you, and we'll close off here. Shukran. Ahsant.